Happy New Year, adventurers! Today we visit the beautiful and historic town of Pietrelcina, Italy, the birthplace of the beloved Saint Pio. Saint Pio of Pietrelcina was born Francesco Forgione on May 25, 1887 in Pietrelcina, a small town in southern Italy. From an early age, he showed a deep spiritual sensitivity. He was educated privately until at the age of 15, he entered the novitiate of the Capuchin friars. Though physically frail, he possessed a strong will and persevered through his studies. He was ordained a priest in 1910. After his ordination, Padre Pio lived a life marked by intense prayer, sacrifice, and obedience. On September 20th, 1918, while praying before a crucifix, he received the stigmata, the 5 wounds of Christ's Passion. He thus became the first priest in the history of the Catholic Church to bear the stigmata, a phenomenon that would remain visible for 50 years. Padre Pio's life became one of extraordinary spiritual influence. Countless people were drawn to his confessional, while many more sought his counsel through letters. His days were marked by long hours of prayer, severe austerity, and profound suffering, both physical and spiritual. His correspondence with his spiritual directors reveals a deep union with God and an intense love for the Eucharist and the Virgin Mary. On January 9, 1940, Padre Pio announced plans for a hospital, the Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, which he described as his work, inspired and blessed by God. The hospital opened on May 5, 1956, as a 300-bed facility dedicated to relieving suffering of body and soul. It remains one of his most enduring legacies. After more than half a century of suffering and apostolic activity in San Giovanni Rotondo, Padre Pio died on September 23, 1968. His public funeral drew over 100,000 mourners, and he was laid to rest in the crypt of Our Lady of Grace Church. Pilgrims from around the world continue to visit his tomb, many reporting spiritual and temporal graces. On December 18, 1997, Pope St. John Paul II declared Padre Pio venerable, recognizing his heroic virtues. He was beatified in 1999 and canonized on June 16, 2002, with over 500,000 faithful gathered in Rome. Today, his relics are venerated at the sanctuary of Saint Pio of Pietrelcina in San Giovanni Rotondo, now a major pilgrimage destination. Saint Pio's legacy lives on through his spiritual teachings, his devotion to God, and his hometown of Pietrelcina, which remains a key place for understanding the origins of his remarkable life and faith. Pietrelcina has several places that were close to Padre Pio's heart. First, we visit the Chiesa Madre di Santa Maria degli Angeli in Pietrelcina. This is the town's historic parish church, dating back to the 14th century. Padre Pio celebrated his first Mass here on the 14th of August, 1910. He had been ordained a priest in Benevento Cathedral on August 10, 1910, and a few days later returned to Pietrelcina, where he offered his first Mass in this church, surrounded by family and the local community. At that time, the young friar had already returned to his hometown a year earlier, as a serious illness made it difficult for him and his fellow friars to remain in the convent. He stayed in Pietrelcina until 1916, spending those years immersed in intense mystical experiences and dedicated service to the local church. He assisted the parish priest, Don Salvatore Panullo, by celebrating Mass, hearing confessions, and administering the sacraments. This church is dedicated to Our Lady of Liberty, Madonna della Libera, the patron saint of Pietrelcina, venerated for the miraculous deliverance from the cholera outbreak in 1854. Saint Pio was deeply devoted to her, affectionately calling her Our Little Madonna, Madonnella Nostra, and always kept an image of her in his cell. The church also has several relics connected to Saint Pio. These include a statue of the saint, a tuft of his hair, the scabs of his stigmata, and one of his gloves. For devotees of the newly canonized Saint Carlo Acutis, there is also a relic of the saint on the left side of the altar. The cats of Pietrelcina. Our next stop is La Torretta, a small humble hermitage perched atop the rocky remains of the old baronial castle near the birthplace of Saint Pio. Between 1909 and 1912, when Padre Pio was young and suffering from poor health, he could not live in the Capuchin friary or with his family because of the strict rules of his order. To comply, his parents rented this modest room, accessible only by climbing a steep, winding stone staircase. In that simple chamber, with only a bed, a small table, and a window, he spent long hours in prayer, meditation, and spiritual writing. Here he wrote many of the earliest letters to his spiritual directors, conveying his intimate inner life, his mystical experiences, and his commitment to God amid suffering. These letters later became treasured for understanding the depth of his spirituality. La Torretta is a place of quiet devotion, a witness to the formative years when Padre Pio deepened his faith and perseverance. After La Torretta, we went inside the kitchen of Padre Pio's house, the home of the Forgione family. Just steps from where Padre Pio was born, the kitchen was the heart of the Forgione family's domestic life. It had its own entrance opening directly onto the street and a large open hearth on the left as you entered, the focal point for cooking daily meals and for family gatherings. In this cooking area, Mother Maria Giuseppa, or Mama Peppa, prepared the modest fare of a southern Italian farming family at the turn of the 20th century. Around the fire on cold evenings, the family would sit close, share stories of the day's work in the fields, and pray the rosary together. Right beside the kitchen is the house where Padre Pio was born. It's a simple stone home that quietly preserves the origins of an extraordinary life. It was in this house in 1887 where Francesco Forgione was born to a poor farming family. Within these walls, Francesco grew up surrounded by the steady faith of his parents, Grazio Mario and Maria Giuseppa. Prayer was not separate from daily life, but woven into it, shaping the rhythm of the household. From an early age, he learned silence, obedience, and trust in God, values absorbed naturally through family example rather than instruction. The simplicity of the house stands in striking contrast to the global devotion Padre Pio would later inspire. Today, the birthplace invites visitors to reflect on how holiness can emerge from the most unassuming circumstances, reminding them that Padre Pio's profound spiritual journey began in humility in this small home in Pietrelcina. A short walk from Saint Pio's birthplace led us to the Church of Sant Anna, where the future saint was baptized. In this small village church, just days after his birth, Francesco Forgione was brought to the baptismal font and received the sacrament that marked his formal entry into the Christian faith. The very same baptismal font has been preserved on the left side of the church. Sant Anna holds special meaning for pilgrims of Padre Pio because it represents the quiet, hidden beginning of Padre Pio's lifelong relationship with God. The church invites reflection on how Padre Pio's extraordinary spiritual journey began in the most ordinary and sacred way, rooted in the faith of his family and community. After the church, we stopped by the Dimora di Padre Pio Sacerdote. This place is closely linked to the period between 1910 and 1916, when Padre Pio, newly ordained and in fragile health, lived outside the Capuchin friary. The building is locally known as the home of his brother, Michele Forgione, or Zi Michele, or Uncle Michele. Because Padre Pio suffered from serious persistent health issues, he had to leave the Torretta for more comfortable quarters. This house was purchased by his father Grazio, with money earned working in the United States. It later hosted Maria Pio, a benefactress, from 1941 to 1943.
Ayan, yeah. Tapos,
Nag-label.
bagting na.
Our final stop is the Convento dei Frati Minori Cappuccini di Pietrelcina. This is the town's historic Franciscan friary, and it remains a central site for pilgrims and those interested in the saint's spiritual journey. The church is home to a museum dedicated to the saint, a sacred fragment for the mortal remains of Saint Pio, and a statue of the saint blessed by Pope St. John Paul II on the day of his beatification in 1999. And that brings us to the end of our day-long spiritual journey in Pietrelcina, to honor the life and legacy of the town's most famous son, Saint Pio. We hope you found the tour of Pietrelcina as inspiring and moving as we did. Stay tuned for our upcoming trips, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you at our next adventure.